Hello, welcome to Revive and Rise. I'm your host, Melody Parrish. I want to thank you for joining us today. We have a very special guest, Dennis DJ Quinn. He is an author and he's done volunteer work with the Big Brothers and Big Sisters organization. And I would like to thank you so much, Dennis, for being with us today to share your story and your expertise.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. It's a great deal. I've listened to a lot of it, and you do great work, and it's great to be part of that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And tell us a little bit about yourself and
I am currently retired, which is the best gig I've ever had. I retired a couple of years ago, and I really enjoy the time that comes along, the free time, and that the lack of structure. It takes a while to get some discipline behind that, but I was the second oldest of nine kids raised in Helena, Montana, in a Catholic family, and both my parents were extremely involved with our family life all the time, and it was a wonderful experience, and they are my best friends still to this day. Some of my very best friends are is my brother and sisters, and we all get along. We still get along really well, which is great. When we were growing up, I remember at one point we'd watch TV around all of us, around the one TV fighting for places, whoever had the best seating in the room, and they used to play these PSA commercials for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and it was directed at for Big Brother volunteers. They were looking for Big Brother volunteers, and these were people who would work with kids who didn't have dads in the home or an adult male contact. And so I can't remember how old I was, but I remember telling my sister, one of my sisters, that if I ever move away from home, I think I'll do that. I think I'll try that. And after I finished college, I went to school in Helena, and then after I finished college, I got a job in Minneapolis. As a flight attendant, and during that time, we had a lot. Our schedules were very erratic, and we had a lot of time off. And so I thought, well, I'll do that Big Brother thing, see how it goes. And they wanted a commitment for a year, and a weekly outing for a year is what they had at that time. So I applied, and I got accepted to be Big Brother volunteer, and I was matched up with an 11-year-old kid named Scott. And I think, I know I went into it thinking, okay, I'm going to help this kid out and make everything great for him, and I found out right away that that wasn't the situation. That it was just to go out and hang out with him for a a couple hours or whatever, and just kind of expose him, give him some help, be a friend to him. And it turned out to be a really good experience. We had a lot of freedom. His mother was very, whatever you want to do. He was living with his mother, and I came from a family where it was all of us around, the whole group of people. You always had people around, and he came from a family where it was him and mom. And when I was a kid, I was had a paper route, and I was saving money to like up, up tick my bike, get a better bike. And he was sharing his money with his mother so they could pay the rent. And so it was a real eye opener for me to see what it was like for him to live, and what it was like for his family, and what it was like to uh, be a friend. And I learned right away too that I would never replace Dad. He had met Dad a couple times, and he had been in contact with him, and he would write to Dad, but then Dad wouldn't write back. And but I knew right away that I wasn't replacing Dad. I was just a friend to be there with him. And that relationship continued on for 4 years. We did that while I was in Minneapolis, and then I transferred to Seattle. But we did maintain contact over the years, and I ended up being best man at his wedding, and also godfather to his son. And he was just a great friend, and really turned out to be a great guy. And I just really admired him for all he did for his family. He had two kids and a granddaughter, and he would come out, and they would come out. The family would come out here and visit with us for vacations. and then he went through some really tough times towards the end of his life. He had a brain tumor and whatnot, and unfortunately got in an accident. He had gone back to work after the surgery had healed, but he got in an accident and was killed in the accident. That was last November, and um, that was painful to see, painful to be out there with him and be. But I would be able to get out there and be with his family for several days before he passed away. So it just coming from that little simple thing is, okay, I'm going to be a big brother and we're going to see what this is like. And it was eye opening, but it was also a huge friendship that developed and I'm very grateful for that. And he was the type of kid that was pretty eh, not a real expressive. But he always liked doing what we were doing, and sometimes you'd get this feeling like, is this making any difference? Because you didn't get a lot of feedback from him. But one time we went out there with a buddy of his, the three of us went out to go swimming or something like that, and his friend said he talks about you all the time. He really talks about you, so you think, okay, this is helping him out. This is it's worth my time to do it. Fast forward, I moved out to from Minnesota to Seattle, and then in 1992, I went to be a big brother again for the second time, and that was with it initially at the hearing or the orientation I went to. They said that they're looking for heterosexual role models for their kids, and I couldn't believe he said that because the policy that had been in place when I applied at first was that it didn't matter what your sexuality was. They asked you that question, and the mother was made aware of it because she had the final say on that match. But the Seattle chapter at that time was one of five in the country that were banning gay applicants because they had had a lawsuit that had gone in the favor of a party that was suing them for apparent abuse or something, and they had decided what they were going to do is not accept gay applicants. And I went in and argued with the executive director after that because they had a waiting list of several hundred kids for volunteers, and they weren't even willing to talk to anybody that, regardless of if you had had a successful match prior to that. Eventually, then I wrote a letter, and about 6 months later, they called me and told me that they had changed their policy in line with the national organizations, which was they would start accepting gay applicants, and mother had the final say on it. So I did apply. I applied about probably it was about 6 7 months later. I told them I couldn't do it right at that point. And when I applied with them, then I was matched with my second little brother, Michael, and Michael had been in foster care he was 7 years old, and he had been in and out of foster care since the time he was two. And the woman who was his primary foster mother at that time was in the process of adopting him. And so when I met him, it was right before the adoption was finalized. She was 63, and one of her adult children lived nearby, and was helping her with helping her with Mike. And when I met him, he had some pretty significant challenges as far as he may have been fetal alcohol syndrome. I'm not sure. His biological mother had had several other children, and they had all been removed from the home. But he was the most lovable, expressive kid. He had a horrible time talking. He had dyspraxia, and so the mind and the tongue didn't connect. But so that was Mike, and I started getting together with him and on a weekly or biweekly basis, and that match went on for probably about 5 or 6 years until I moved out of the county. And then they lost their jurisdiction, or they gave up their jurisdiction on the match. But we continued to see each other, and he then developed mental illness about uh, in puberty, and it became unsafe for him to live with his mother, his adoptive mother. So then I did a whole. It was back and forth to different houses and whatnot that he's living in group homes, foster care, run away on the streets, back into this, finally hospitalized and whatnot. And I saw him through that whole period of time, and I ended up writing a book about that, Stick Figures: A Big Brother Remembers. And it was for me, it was eye opening to that it was a good 13-year lesson in acceptance because when I would see him after the mental illness, you never knew what condition he would be in or where he would be living or any of that. And for me to have a stable home and a stable existence, that was pretty shocking, and it helped me really understand how much care that took for him to be able to live independently, or independently was unavailable to him anymore. He couldn't stay, but also the the whole aspect of it and the difficulty to find care and the constant need to be looking for new places for him and that. And I was involved in that from a distance, and it was eye opening for me. But it like the match with Scott had a huge impact on me, and it made me open my eyes to a lot, and it helped me, you know, have gratitude for what I have, and just that whole issue of you don't have any control over what's happening to this individual. He doesn't have any control over what's happening to him, and the whole question of why, or am I wasting my time, or where's this going to go? All of that was intense, but it was a good experience.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love those two stories because it it just expresses, I think, the need for human connection. And I love that just, it wasn't just a one-way street. So many times people think, "Oh, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to volunteer or I'm going to do this and I'm going to help this person." But they don't realize everything they're going to get back. Like you said, it really helped you and had an impact on you.
Right. Yeah, and it was powerful, and that was real unexpected. When I went into the second match, I had kind of an idea that, okay, this is going to be a significant in my event in my life because I'd had that with Scott earlier. That I knew it was we were long term friends simply from being buddies that hung out every week or so. But yeah, so I knew right away when with Mike, and I actually thought the first night I thought I should write a book about this because I was doing a little writing, and I really knew with the challenges he had, and those that this was going to be a unique experience. And he did very well the first few years before the mental illness hit. He the speech leveled out, and he learned to read, and was interested in all kinds of different things. But then that mental illness hit, it just threw everything into place.
Yeah, and it was that connection. I think these days, people just don't know what to do for each other, and they don't know what each other needs. That's another thing. But it just, I love the story and the fact that you wanted to take a chance and you went out and found something. It's like you didn't know, you weren't sure, but you tried it anyway, and look at the beauty. I mean, a friendship where you were the best man and you were the godfather of the small boy that you befriended from this
Yeah,
match. That's beautiful. And I love the connection. I feel like, we need human connection. We need to feel valued, to feel seen, to feel heard. And it sounds like you gave that to someone.
I was able to do that, and for me, it actually when I first started flying, it was a good stabilizing thing for me to have that commitment because at that point we had a lot of free time, erratic schedules. People were moving here and flying in to do their work at the base, and you know transferring bases and all that, and that was really easy to get into if things weren't working really well. But having that commitment to hang with this kid for a year, and that that really actually provided me with some good stability in those early years of flying. And I look at it now, and with COVID, I think a lot of I think there's a tremendous need for it now, because after COVID, I think that whole period of isolation, that that a lot of human connections got dropped, or the having to interact with people, and how to have conversations, how to resolve disputes, that sort of thing. A lot of that practice of having that uh, got got banished, got wiped out. I grew up with it. I had nine brothers and 8 brothers and sisters. You know, you could fight with whoever you wanted to, and you'd always have another friend somewhere else. Yeah, but that you learn how that interaction goes. But then again, you start looking for privacy, and for me, it's easy to just to isolate, and to have a commitment that you had to do that every time, every couple of weeks or whatever. There were times where you never wanted, and you thought this is the last thing I wanted to do, but it was actually a very, very helpful thing to do for both for the kid and for me. And there just remarkable things happen that you just laugh about sometimes today. Um, at the same time that I was matched with Mike, my partner at the time, my husband now, uh, he was matched with another 7-year old, and so occasionally we would do things together. But his little brother, who will be 40 next month,
Mhm.
this was a very athletic, very high strung, very intelligent kid, and Mike was a slow plodding, really. And so the contrast was pretty apparent. But that matchup also helped. Joe has said it has helped Nate to be more compassionate, to be more patient, to spend time with Mike. He sees what he has, and you see what somebody else have, and how they handle things, and it became a good experience for them too. So we lucked out on that. But anytime you spend time with other people, you learn something different if you're watching carefully and listening carefully, and a lot it enriches a person's life. I feel that it has for me anyway. And I also do some mentoring work with a group around drug and alcohol addiction, but we go into the county juvenile detention facility a few times a month. And what I noticed there is a lot of them, not everybody, but a lot of them, if when you talk a little bit about the family backgrounds, it's rare that it's not turbulent. It's
Mhm.
nothing like what I grew up with, but and I remember one time we were talking about role models and asking who were their role models, and this one kid said his parole officer was the role model. And that's the first. And so that's where I think that what the power of doing these mentor programs is, you give a kid a chance. You give a kid a chance at realizing that there's other ways to live than some of the chaos, that you give a kid a chance of understanding that there's some people out there that who can help them out, that do different things, that enjoy different hobbies and whatnot. So that's been really valuable too. And it's just a reminder to me that you just keep trying, and you don't know if you're going to be able to do anything to them, but sometime they will remember, and they will remember that these guys came and talked to me, and they told me that if I needed help with this, go here, that kind of thing. So it's the roll of the dice. It always helps me. It always helps the guys that go over there together with us, and to have that exposure with them. Um, so I heard a woman one time on a podcast that had done juvenile visitations, and she was a minister or whatnot, and she said, was talking about her work there, and it really stuck with me. She said, "I don't have any solutions. I don't have any magic wand. I don't have anything to change the situation." She said, "What she has was a ministry of presence, for showing up, being present for these people. That's what she had to give." And that's kind of how I viewed what, especially with my little brother Mike, when he was hospitalized and stuff, and you'd be visiting him, you didn't know what you were going to see when you got there, or how he was going to be. It what I had was a presence. And I wanted to show up and just let them know that you got a friend, you got somebody from your background that's still connected with you, that's still still cares for you, and hopefully make hopefully give him a couple hours where he continued to cream me in chess every time I went to see him in these locked wards. And I'm thinking, no, I should be able to win a game of chess. No, it didn't happen that way. He was very good at taking a look at a board and just understanding where the next move should be. And uh,
Mhm.
it was horrible. I always got beat in chess at the institution. I find that humorous, but it's also, we played chess. The chess glued us together. I still have the chess board in my room. It's, a, it's a good deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's nice. People, I feel like people need to remember that we're all human. And like you say, you guys were just playing chess, simple thing that people do every day. And that's just the thing. These people are human, each one of us. And I love the fact that you say, you talked about diversity and just the people doing different things and showing someone something else. And, we can all learn from each other. And as I listen to you talking, it seems like that's the experience you've had, just meeting different individuals that are not like you, but learning from them. And in the same respect, teaching them things about yourself that they may never know. Would you agree with that?
I think so. Yeah. The the thing with the little brothers too, you were looking for, you do things together, and the focus was not to spend money on them. They didn't want to, don't want a sugar daddy for them. They want a friend. And so we did a lot of different things that I would never do at that age. I would, and one, the one I would never do again is they had free tickets to professional wrestling one night. And that was the longest 5 hours of my life. Um, but I would never do that without having that commitment. And, things we would do, we'd go swimming or canoeing, or we'd go to different movies, or, we would do the organization actually put together uh, uh, trips to the soup kitchen where you would help serve people and they would help serve people, and they'd be surprised that there's kids their age coming in to eat there, all that sort of thing. So it was really enriching. And there's, Mike suggested one time that he thought that he and I should go down to Pike Market, which is a public market, next week and beg for money for a Nintendo for him. And I said, well, no, that's not quite what this program is about. We're not going to be begging down on the street so you to get video game. But thanks for the suggestion. But you get into all these crazy things that you do, and it's pretty fun, and and that I think for young people, there's a desperate need for volunteers. The agency out here right now in Tacoma, which is the closest town to us, has 200 kids waiting on a list, and in the Puget Sound areas, there's like 600 kids waiting for somebody to volunteer to help mentor them in that. And um, the thing that is imp- really good, I mean, it sounds like okay, I got to spend a couple hours every week. Well, I look at it as how much time do I spend on my phone in a day? you know, you could put the phone down for a couple hours and go bike riding or go hang out or just talk or play some video games with a kid, and that really makes a difference in their life. I've seen what difference it makes. It doesn't fix everything. It doesn't make life perfect, but it's a, a good companionship that you can be a friend to, and it helps them. Like Mike, I always had an agreement with him that if something came up in our conversations that I thought his mother should know, that he had two choices. Then we could tell her when we got home from the outing right there, or he could tell her when I left, but I was going to call her and tell her. I mean, call her and make sure he told her. And that always worked really well. He always chose to tell her things when I was still in the room. It lessened his chance of getting in trouble, I think. But things like that. Just a kid has a friend that he can tell stuff to, that he might, you know, that you can help him out with. His speech therapy. He took speech therapy, and one day I was with him, and his speech was really hard. He just couldn't couldn't deal with it that day, and I always made him, like, when we would go to McDonald's or something, I have him order, and he would gradually got more comfortable with that. But the one day when he was really crying, he was just having a meltdown, and I pulled over and I told him, hey, I told him I went to speech therapy too when I was a kid, and he was surprised that I had gone to speech therapy with him. And I told him, yeah, I went to speech therapy, and I told him how I was saying my s's out the side of my mouth, and from that point on, he never really had another big meltdown in front of me on speech, but I think it just encouraged him to say, hey, here's somebody else that had trouble with his speech, and it gets better if I keep working at it. So you never know what's going to come up, but it's always challenging. And the beauty of it too is after 2 hours, you take him home and see he's the mother's problem. But uh,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the nice thing. If you don't have children, go volunteer as a big brother, big sister because you get the best thing. You play with them, you learn with them, and then you give them back, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
can you talk a little more? I feel like mental illness is just not talked about very much, and more so now. So I'm 45 this year, and I can remember when I was younger, nobody ever talked about mental illness. They just didn't want to. It was a source of shame,
mhm.
maybe a source of confusion. We just didn't know much about it. But now it seems like people talk about it more, and you'll hear people say, I need a moment to get my things together, or I just need a mental day, a mental health day. So those kind of things are good. But can you talk more about Mike and his mental health struggle? Like, not necessarily giving any information, of course, but things that you saw, how it affected him.
It the the when it first started happening, it was it was mixed right in with becoming a teenager, and being a teenager involves a lot of weird behavior, and you couldn't really dissect what was right, or I mean what was going wrong or what it was. So it took a while for that. And I called one day to his mom to set up a time to get together with him that week. She told me that he wasn't there, that he had, and I said, well, he was up in this Harborview Hospital, and he was in the psych ward, the psychiatric ward, and I couldn't understand why. I thought she's overreacted to something, but um, when I went up there, then it was so different. He didn't really know why he was there. He didn't know what was going on. He told me, he says, I said, you just keep doing what you can do here. And he told me that he was trying not to help wash his hands so much so they wouldn't think he was crazy. And that really hurt, but he didn't realize what was going on. And it what happened to him, he really just his behavior got bizarre. Schizophrenic, I think, is what the diagnosis was. And then he used to love to swim, and then at one point somebody told him, or a voice told him, that don't water is dangerous. So then he wouldn't shower, he wouldn't swim, he wouldn't bathe, and he then he started just weird behaviors, and then he would get suicide um ideation. He would uh he would be do stuff, so when he was in a group home, he would do things to keep him, kind of isolated. He would urinate, or defecate in ir- just the wrong places, or in rooms or stuff like that. And then he would try to hurt other people. Sometimes he would save his own medication, and take it all. Sometimes he would run away after in being in Harborview in he was at the first time he went. He was in Children's Hospital. That's where that early incident happened. But he walked out the front door and walked 20 miles down towards the airport. He was going to walk over the mountains and start a new life. And he went into a mattress store and was going to spend the night there. So at least he had clear thinking that, I'll get a bed here. But it's so it was really, really bizarre. And then the medications they gave him helped with the psychotic episodes, but it played havoc with his weight, and he got really quiet. And then he learned somewhere that if you were bulimic, that you would lose weight, and he got into that. And so it was just a whole mix of stuff that wasn't right. And I took him out one time from one of the hospitals. They allowed me to take him out on a pass, and we went to a movie. And then during the movie, he said he's going to the bathroom. I had gotten up once before and came back. He was there, and then he's going to the bathroom, and I thought I should follow him, but he vanished. And so later that night, they found him, and what he had done was walk over to a grocery store and pull a jug of bleach off the shelf and tried to drank some of it. So it was just all kinds of different things. But yet he could, when they lifted his medications, he could talk a lot more. But then he would start acting really bizarre stuff. And he knew it wasn't right. He knew that things were bothering him, and with his speech, it was really hard for him to explain what it was, and it got less and less easy to do that. So, but you just kept hanging with him and that, and then yeah, so it was a journey and a half for me, and it was sometimes you just like think, oh my gosh, this is the strangest thing I've seen, and but other times, you know, it was good humor when I came out of there sometimes, but other times I'd come out of there crying, just like, you know, you go home and the dogs have more freedom than this kid ever will. So, yeah, but it is, I mean, and I think it's more out there, and I think it's good there that the treatment for mental health things is very limited, and housing is a problem, a real problem, a real shortage. So it is something that needs to be talked about, and it needs to be funded.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're a ways from that right now. So what can I do?
Yeah.
I can be a volunteer to somebody. It doesn't have to be somebody that's mentally handicapped. It doesn't have to be. I can just help somebody else that can use a helping hand. Somebody to spend time with for a little while. And I have some handicapped friends. That's one thing that has helped me with knowing Mike. I have some people that are developmentally disabled. And there's two or three of them that are living independently, and for them to live independently requires a lot of help from other people periodically. And I learned from doing with Mike how hard it is for somebody to live independently, and if they can live independently, then I have to remind myself, I can help them out, even though I don't feel like I could at that point.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's important for people to remember that people with mental illness, that people with physical handicaps or physical disabilities, that they are struggling. It's not like they are wanting to have these disabilities that they do, but it's bad for them. And I think that sometimes people don't think about how bad it is for them to go through what they're going through. And the fact that there's not a lot of help out there. There's not a lot of resources. It's really it's really heartbreaking. You're right. Sometimes you cry and sometimes you laugh so you don't cry. Sometimes that's the only thing you can do um, to keep from crying,
Hmm.
you know. And Can you just talk about a little bit the struggle of the housing, of the connection? Because I that's so important. I don't think people realize how important it is for people that do have mental illness to have friends that accept them and that love them and that just show up, that they can
Hmm.
always count on, that people that are in wheelchairs or that have other physical handicaps, that people show up for them and they help them, they accept them. Can you talk about that a little more?
There, in Mike's situation, there was a one time where we went to a hearing whether to help get him some additional aid, and there there was a room full of people um, in a hearing that usually took an hour, and this was a extended one because they were looking for a certain type of aid where the IQ had to be below a certain threshold, and he had three tests, and one of them was slightly above that. But there were his adopted mother was there. My husband and I were there. Several of the caseworkers he had worked with were there. Some of the therapists and teachers. And when you look around like that, here's this whole group of people advocating for this kid and how important that is. And the housing became a really difficult thing. He was no longer safe to live with his mother, his adopted mother. He would be put into a group home, and then that that would work for a while, and then he would run away, or he would get in conflicts with other people. So that situation wasn't good. Then they put him into, another group home or another wing of that, and another time when he was in one that was really I thought a really good situation for him, but then he got angry and tried to put something in somebody's the carton of milk or whatever. So it's just all those things made it really, really difficult. And you know, they tried an individual foster home with him, and he ran away from that. So it's hard to a have the places, and b is it going to be a good fit? Is your illness, are they going to be able to make you can you fit in there? And it might work, and it might work really well, and then you might start feeling great, and then stop your medications, and then all bets are off. So yeah, there is a tremendous need for that for housing, and it's difficult. It's really difficult to find a type of housing that goes. And yeah, I that's my friends that are living independently. I look at them, and I look at one thing that really I admire is the courage. You think of what it takes sometimes to get out of bed when you're not feeling well, or if your legs hurt, or if you're not with it or whatever. And to do that every single day and then try to live in the community is unbelievable courage that these people are exhibiting and living with. And that's an inspiration. And when I can help out, or whenever somebody else can, and most of them have, most of these folks have a good support system around them. But if when one's parents die, a parent died, and then who's going to help out? And for the parents, it's a everyday worry. You
Yeah.
know, it's an everyday worry on something that's going to last for the rest of their lives. Um, but I mean, people can do. There are some. There's a remarkable amount of people that do this kind of work. There's you know people at food banks and stuff. There's people at churches that work there and do this every day and just make it part of their life. And that is real important work. And you know our whole dash career wise, as you get older. I just retired a couple of years ago, and I, the priorities have shifted. It's enjoying time and helping out rather than career. So that's been nice. but taking some of that time, my experience was taking some of that time out of my day, out of my week, a month, to do a couple times a month, get together with those little brothers. It was tremendous. It's tremendous for them. I think it was really tremendous for me. It helped me. It changed me into a different type of person. Um, my younger brothers and sisters probably wish I was that kind to them when just kidding.
Well, and I love this that you talk about your family and how you all get along and you all love each other. One thing that I really found uh, heartwarming when you said it was, with having 9 brothers and sisters, you could yell at one, but you always had another friend somewhere. And, it a, a lot of people don't have that. And and it's so important that you were able to recognize that, and offer that to
Yeah,
someone else.
it's a really good bunch of people. They're a lot of fun, and we still get together and do something. I mean, my dad is now 95, and my mother passed away about uh, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and he is now, gradually he's in an assisted part of the living situation, but somebody, 6 of them live still in town, and somebody every morning is over there checking on him, and every evening having dinner or making sure he gets dinner and that, and so that's been unbelievable to see that happen. And I try to get out there once a month and help out. And my sister and their brother that live out of town both go down there and donate time. But to see that them do that and to take such good care of my dad, and he's getting more and more forgiveful as he goes along. He told me about a year ago. He goes, that AI stuff, that artificial intelligence. He goes, we got a lot of that going on here at the at Touch artificial intelligence. So, um,
Uh,
but they are just like just a great group of people, and my nieces and nephews, and it's a good bunch. So, and we're very lucky, and a big part of that goes is credit to my parents to being there and setting some rules um and putting up with us. The I got started. I always credit my writing career as the start of it was when I was in high school and Richard Nixon was running for reelection, and my mother was a staunch Democrat, very staunch Democrat, and so I borrowed my dad's typewriter at his office, and I wrote her a letter from the committee to reelect the president, Richard Nixon, said that we we appreciate that she's been one of our biggest supporters for so many years, and we're sure we can count on a substantial donation to reelect President Nixon. And I mailed it to her, and she got it. And I was there the day she opened it, and she came unglued, and it was so great. Like seeing that happen, that you could just arrange words like that and get a reaction out of somebody. I thought that is a really fun thing to do. And she was one of my biggest supporters in writing all the time. She would really encourage me to keep doing it. But she was great. And I've heard from my sister that my dad one time, she had a lot that was really frustrating her, and he said, we don't want to break their spirit, and that's the kind of the thing that he lived by. And we were really blessed to have that. I mean, you know, they're a really good bunch of people.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's great. I love hearing stories like that. I love it. Can you talk more? I love the fact that you were talking about words and the importance of words and saying them to get a reaction, and that's why you started writing. Um, can you talk a little more about that?
yeah, I really enjoy that. It's I found when I was doing the book that I got really I found a real enjoyment of the technical part about putting the words together, and I know that if something I write can make me laugh or can make me cry, that it's hitting the mark. and but just to rearrange certain words in that and how make it better and how you can express things. I've taken a few writing classes, and I have especially one writing instructor who's just dynamite. But that helped. I mean, the more you do it, the more you practice, the better it gets. But just that whole technical part of it was, for some reason, really appealing to me. And when you got into a work of that size, when a book size work, there was a lot that had to match from place to place um, you didn't do. I like writing humor, and that's one of the things I think I'm best at. I used to do some writing for an airline labor union. I did a newsletter, and that was that was fun. I had one column in there that I did as an anonymous extra flight attendant or crew. They used to have a minimum crew, and then they would add extra people as they needed. And these people would do these ads. They'd jump from plane to plane to plane. And so it was about Jaffa the ad was the name, just another freaking ad. Um, they were all like this kind of out there a little bit, and each month I would write that, and they'd put that newsletter out in crew lounges, and I would sit there and people listen to people read this and laugh about it, and that was very rewarding. And I knew the audience very well because I was doing the work, and so that was fun. But I really like. It was fun to write about Mike. It was healing to write about Mike. Um, and it's also been fun. I really like. I did copywriting when we were doing real estate. How many ways can you describe a bathroom in a house? I mean, it gets pretty old. 15 years of doing that. So I would do the stuff and send it to my coworkers to proof it. And a lot of times I would put in a, a fake sentence that was just right way off the wall or just close enough that they couldn't really tell if it was, and send it and see if they were reading it or not. And that kind of stuff was fun to do. It and it still is enjoyable. I really enjoy it, and when I do it, I feel better after I do it. I've written a lot of stuff about incidences with my brothers and sisters, little things that we did. Um, One brother, when we were going to California on a road trip, we were going to cross into Nevada and California the next day, the youngest kid, and it was hotter than hot, and everybody was just crashed out. But the night before we went there, I told him we were going through the desert and that I would give him $5 for every camel he saw. So you're traveling across, the whole family's asleep, and this kid's like, look, hanging on the back of the seats, looking for camels. And finally, my parents say, "Why are you so interested in the desert?" He goes, "Because I get $5 for all the camels I see." Um, he was raising me about that the last time we got together. So it's been a while. Yeah. So it's fun. It's fun to do stuff like that. It's fun to put it on words, and that the whole thing about arranging the words can be a perfectionist nightmare. You can redo it all the time. You have to learn. I've learned that I have to just let it go at a certain point, and there will be mistakes, and hopefully the mistakes aren't too great that it really throws. But it's a it's a great hobby, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, I think so, and I love that you say it's healing and yet brings you joy, and that's the thing, right? We have to do things that heal our spirits from whatever is the broken parts, but we also
Hmm.
find joy in what we do, in everything.
Yeah, people used to always say, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" or that, but the really question I find sometimes is, "What do you enjoy doing? What kind
Y-
of things do you enjoy doing?" Because that's the stuff you will have the most joy out of, and it's probably the things that you do best. Is that in it? It takes practice, but it's also it's rewarding stuff, and you can do some good stuff with it too. And also, I also believe firmly that the tough stuff that a person has gone through in life, that it puts them in a position, the lessons they learned in that, to help somebody else with it. Because I've had that happen before. People who have gone through things have helped me with it, and people who I know that are call me occasionally for advice. You can share the experience in that. That is real helpful too. And writing, you know writing all it gets a lot of that stuff out, and you can share it with people, and it's good stuff.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, Dennis, so much for being with us. This was so great, just talking to you and listening and you sharing, um, and hopefully inspiring some of our listeners to get out and be big brothers and big sisters or volunteer at some capacity.
Yeah. And I hope that, that's kind of the message I'm trying to get across to people, is that there's a lot out there, and it's you'll get out more out of it than the other person does, which is good. And you don't know what it's going to be, whether it's stability in your life, whether it's new perspectives for that. And I that's why I wrote that book about Mike. It's called Stick Figures: A Big Brother Remembers. And the stick figures came from when we first started. We would write we had a calendar, and we would draw a little stick. I would draw a little stick figure of what we had done that day of the two of us. And he had those for quite a while until he, uh, he, you know, was moved out of the home, and they got lost in one of the moves. But um, it's a good experience. I don't think anybody will ever regret helping somebody else out. And if you look at what you get out of it, it's pretty incredible. So, and,
Yes, definitely.
and I appreciate the work you do too. You do good work, and hope you keep it up.
Oh,
So yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
And so for your book, now I know you have a website
Uh-huh.
and you haven't just this isn't the only book you've written,
I
right?
have I have another one that's a little kid's book, or it's early reader, probably, maybe. It's two kids going on vacation to Raft Island, which is actually the small island that I live out on here in Washington. And they hear a story about a pirate and his treasure, and so they go through. They had decide they're going to find this treasure, and it takes them through the treasure hunt, looking for this treasure. And it's a good read. It's got an uplifting ending, and it can be read in chapters. It's not too scary. So yeah, and that's called
Right.
Raft Island Treasure Hunters.
Right.
The name of it.
Island
So,
Treasure Hunt.
yeah, Raft Island Treasure. So
Wonderful. And what is your website if people want to go and just find more out about you?
it's DJ Quinn, Quinn, author.com. DJ
Okay.
Quinn, author.com. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that's where we can find your books as well?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
It's all there.
perfect. Perfect. Well, I want to thank you so much. And feel free to anytime you want to come back. I would love to have you back and we can continue this conversation, talk about more.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. It's fun. It's been great. You do a good job. So keep it up.
Thank you so much. And thank
Okay.
you, listeners, for joining us today. And just remember that you do not have to suffer alone. Take care.